Hi, I'm Pam, and I'm here to talk about video games. Today I'm talking about a brand new game this year that was definitely one of my most anticipated titles for 2026. It is Cairn by the Game Bakers. This game released on January 29th for PC and PlayStation 5. I played through this on PC with a code that was provided by the developers a few weeks before the game came out. This is a survival climbing game where you play Ava, who is determined to reach the summit of the fictional Mount Cami all on her own, leaving her life and everything else behind her. As a big fan of rock climbing myself, this is something that I've really been anticipating and wanted to see the Game Bakers take on rock climbing. Now, I'm not an expert, and I'm definitely not an outdoor/alpinist. I'm more of an indoor climbing, but there was still a lot of my own knowledge that came into effect when I was playing this game, for better and for worse. I really enjoy the concept of this game. It's just you against the mountain. You're trying to reach the summit of this very deadly mountain where everyone who's tried to reach the summit has died, but you, as Ava, is determined to make it work for yourself, not just climbing to the summit, but doing it all alone with no one but her handy, semi-magical climbing robot to help her out. The game has a really great opening. The tutorial takes place in the climbing gym, so you can get used to the controls, what kinds of things the game's going to be asking of you, placing pitons, placing all of your limbs, and then it takes you to a mini rock wall where you climb basically the base of the mountain, taking whichever route you'd like up to the top before the adventure and the survival aspects really start coming into play. I'd say that the game takes a semi-realistic take on climbing. It's definitely more realistic than Jusant from a couple years ago, which I really did like. You need to move one limb at a time, so you have to get the limb and then grab onto something that you can hold onto that will hopefully keep you stable. I'd say that the game is good at choosing the right limb to move about 90% of the time, and if you want to, you can also manually select a limb if it's not giving you what you want. As you're climbing, you have 6 pitons to use, which act as safety and personal protection devices. These are basically pins that go into the rock wall so that you can clip your rope into them, and that helps with 2 things. One, if you're clipped in, you can rest on the rope without having to worry about stressing out or tiring out your limbs. And also, if you fall, you will only fall to the point of that last piton, or at least plus whatever rope you've gone since then, rather than falling to your death, possibly. You also have a kind of magical climbing robot who goes along with you, managing your rope, and then grabbing your pitons as you go so you don't have to worry about cleaning the route behind you to get your gear. I do have more to say about pitons, but I will save that for the end. There's also a survival aspect to this. You have to manage Ava's health, her temperature, her hunger, her thirst. You have a fairly big backpack, but it only has so much room where you can collect water, which you'll be coming across through like mountain springs and things. The food that you've brought with you, food which you are very luckily stumbling upon fairly frequently as you go through the mountain, as well as other things like herbs that can heal you or that you can make tea with, and other little collectibles. You also need to worry about bandaging your fingers because rocks are hard on the skin, so you can individually bandage your fingers to increase your grip strength. You have a chalk bag. You can create your own chalk by using your magic recycler, and you get objects that also can give you boosts in terms of like your grip strength and your, I don't remember what they're called, but like speed and other things that will make it more likely that you will succeed in climbing your route. So for me, Cairn was a game of like incredible highs, but also some real low lows. I found much of it exhilarating and beautiful, but I also found it incredibly frustrating at times. When everything is working well, climbing feels great. It feels good when the game is picking the correct limb, when you can see a little pocket in the rock and move her hand and see her latch onto it, when you can see a little foot chip and move your leg up, when you can make use of her amazing hip flexor strength to boost your way up the wall. It feels absolutely great. Just being able to see where the hold is and place your hand and get it perfect so that you are stable on the wall just feels really good. Also, I love any time you can get to a point where you can shake an arm out, because climbing really pumps your forearms, and I'm always in for a good limb shake to limber things up. When I was in the zone and everything was going right, it just felt really good. Even taking the occasional fall felt fine, and finding an alternate route, just sidestepping a little to make things a little bit easier for you, it was all really fun. And then once you reach the top of the wall that you're climbing, that's when I feel like the game is at its best, where you get to the top, you get off the rope, and you can just take in the amazing vista around you and see how far you've come. But then there are the times when Ava is cursing and unsteady and shaking and about to fall off, when it looks like she's firmly planted on the wall. When her limbs seem to bend backwards no matter what you do with them. And when she takes a small tumble, rather than catching herself, she just ragdolls and bounces off every rock face to the very bottom of the mountain and dies. The ragdoll thing might be funny if it didn't mean losing progress, as the save points in this game are sometimes surprisingly far apart. I honestly had to take multiple breaks from this game. Anytime I fell to my death and lost progress, I had to take a few days off to kind of cool down before I was ready to tackle it again. The one technical issue that really got to me was that Ava is frequently unable to recognize when she's on solid ground. There were times when I went across the wall and I was standing right above a ledge, like a significant ledge. She could just stand on it and rest, but she didn't get it. So I was just ended up kind of spidering myself forever until she finally realized that she was on solid ground. There's also a button to jump off the route. However, she really does jump off, push herself off the wall. So doing that could mean that she actually launches herself off the mountain rather than just stepping down to solid ground. I also really felt that my own knowledge of climbing didn't help me at all. In fact, it usually ended up being more of a hindrance than anything. I frequently found myself frustrated because Ava just wasn't doing something I wanted her to do that I knew was possible. I wasn't expecting her to be doing dynos up on this mountain, but the occasional dead point would have worked, and I frequently found myself yelling at her, "Ava, use your legs!" My own bad climbing habits were also a hindrance. In real life, I hate reading a route. That means looking and planning from the bottom of the wall. I'm not a planner. I'm very impatient when I climb. I just figure it out as I go, and that wasn't any different in the game, which definitely is not the right way to do things in the game or in real life. I also hate how chalk feels, and I never use it myself. I have very dry palms, and so for the longest time in game, I never thought to use the chalk, even though it is pretty helpful. This really is a game where you can tackle whichever parts of the mountain you want to. It's not just one route up, it's a big mountain with a ton of possible routes to do. You can find maps in the game that show routes and their approximate difficulty, or you can just try to make your own way up. You also don't just have to go from bottom to top. I frequently found myself looking back down the mountain and seeing some key feature and then having to rappel down to see what it was and then make my way back up again. So there's a lot of possible routes, and the difficulty can be anything from fairly relaxed to pretty brutally difficult. And I do appreciate that there are a lot of difficulty options you can use to tailor your gameplay to how you like it. I turned on the auto-saving feature fairly quickly, so rather than having to start back from a save point, the game auto-saves anytime you're basically on solid ground. Again, it's like 90% at realizing when you're on solid ground, just because having to repeat myself just makes me frustrated and not want to play the game, so that was definitely a game saver for me. You can also turn off the survival stuff, like having to eat and drink and regulate your temperature if you want to. You can turn on visual indicators so you can see when Ava has a proper hold on the mountain. And there is a rewind feature so that if you fall off, you can rewind and try again. There is also a free solo mode where dying ends your run and you're climbing without any ropes or pitons at all. Honestly, that sounds awful to me, and I would rather free solo an actual mountain than do this in-game, but I'm sure there are many sickos out there who are enjoying that mode right now. Interestingly, while there were a lot of climbs that felt very good and very rewarding, I think my favorite parts of this game were actually all the things around the climbing. Exploring the mountain is great. The mountain really feels alive. Until recently, they had a civilization of people who were living out on the mountain. You also run into other characters. You run into the corpses of failed climbers who came before you. You find notes and letters that people wrote to each other, find out other little stories, and come across some very surprising things, like a rave in a cave. I also just found myself really appreciating the mountain and everything it had to offer, from finding a fresh mountain spring to refill your canteen, to finding a pond of fish that could use as sustenance, finding herbs to make teas, and just taking in the absolute beauty and silence of the world around you. There are also places you can reach where you find a little cairn, which is a mound of stones, and you can just sit down and relax and enjoy the view. You can pan the camera out and look around you and just see how far you've come. My absolute favorite thing in the game, and you can do this at any point, and you can also do this once you finish the game, is that you can backtrack and follow your entire route down the mountain. It does sort of like a heat map showing where you went, where you fell, where you died, where you were having trouble, where things were easy for you, and you can just sort of backtrack all the way down the mountain, and it is a far, far way that you've come. I enjoy the little details around setting up camp so that Ava can get some rest. She stays in her little tent and cooks herself meals. She bandages her fingers. She does sit-ups to pass the time when she's resting to wait out bad weather, because weather is also something you need to worry about. Rain makes the rocks slippery. Wind can be very dangerous, so sometimes it's best to just sit in your tent and wait that out. I also like that the climbing changes as you go. As you get higher up the mountain, it gets colder, it gets snowy and icy, and you have, well, magical reappearing and disappearing crampons and ice picks in order to make your way up the mountain that way. I did sometimes have a little mental roadblock about exploring. While I thought that exploring the mountain was generally the most rewarding part of it, Also, because this is a survival game, and because in character you're someone who's trying to summit a mountain that everyone dies on, I couldn't help but think, who cares what's over there? Take the shortest, most efficient route up the mountain rather than waste time and resources and effort faffing around to find things. But I still did my share of exploring. Now, this is not just a climbing and survival game. There is also a narrative, and there are cutscenes in this game. And I have to say, I didn't love the narrative. While I can get some appreciation from the themes of determination and overcoming challenges and incredible selfishness, I just found that it often distracted from things. I didn't love Ava as a character, and I also found sometimes when I was really getting into a climb and getting near the top, and then when it switched over to a cutscene rather than just letting me get over the edge myself, I found that kind of took away from my experience. Ava's not a very likable character, which is fine. Characters don't need to be likable, but I just found her selfishness a little hard to deal with. She's doing this climb, it is a sponsored climb, and her agent/manager keeps sending her messages being like, hey, can you send us some pictures of your climb, tell me how far you are, let me know you're alive, and she ignores every single one of them. She has a girlfriend back home, her girlfriend's sending her messages, wants to know that she's still alive, and Ava ignores every one of them. I can understand being in the zone and not wanting to have distractions, but I just found that the entire premise of going up this very, very dangerous mountain, probably to die, was a pretty selfish one. And also, warning, I'm gonna get pretty in the weeds here, but I find Ava's choice of equipment was also incredibly selfish. She brings with her 6 pitons to climb, and pitons that I was talking about are a safety measure. You hammer them into the rock, or in this case, they're magical self-screwing pitons, and you can clip your rope in so that if you fall, you don't fall all the way down to the bottom, and you can also take some time to rest. Now, pitons are something that are definitely used in outdoor climbing, especially in colder, icier areas on certain types of rock, but they're really something that's used kind of as a last resort, as they are very damaging to the mountain and the rock face. They damage the rock as they're hammered or screwed in. They damage the rock when they're taken out, if they're even able to be taken out. A lot of the time they can't without being damaged, and in this game, a lot of the time when your robot goes back to retrieve them, they are in fact damaged. But there are multiple other kinds of equipment that you can use for this kind of protection. There are cams, which are like spring-loaded things. You put them into a crack, and then as they go in, the springs come out and they hold you up. You also have nuts, which are another thing that you put in like a larger opening and sort of slide down to a smaller opening. And these are things that don't damage the mountain as much and are also much easier to retrieve than pitons are. And I just think the fact that Ava is going up this mountain with 6 pitons, 0 cams, 0 nuts, or any type of other things to make anchors with is absolutely crazy. Plus, I think there just would have been equipment already left in the walls, especially further on down the mountains where people are climbing more frequently. There frequently can be anchor points already set up on the routes that she could have been making use of. Now, honestly, I don't really think that pitons were a narrative decision as much as they were a mechanic one, but to me, they just really hammered home how selfish I thought Ava was. She's gonna climb this mountain herself. She doesn't want any help. She doesn't want to talk to anyone else. She's gonna inflict psychic damage on all the people she's left behind who she refuses to give updates to and let them know she's still alive. Plus, she is damaging this mountain as much as she can as she's going up, ruining it for other people. Overall, I thought that Cairn was an absolutely beautiful game. I really like the art style they use. I love all the lighting that you get and the design of the mountain itself. I found that climbing was frequently very rewarding, though oftentimes frustrating as well. I did tend to enjoy the pieces around the climbing more than the actual climbing itself. And though, as I said, I am just a amateur indoor rock climber, I did find that some of my own climbing knowledge kind of got in the way of my enjoyment of the game. I do wish that I could have just turned pieces of my brain off to help me more thoroughly enjoy the game than I did, but some things were hard to get past. Overall, I do think this is a very good game that is absolutely gorgeous, that lets you overcome a giant frickin' mountain, which is awesome. I love that it allows you to make your own fun. The difficulty options were definitely a lifesaver for me in terms of getting through the game. There's easier options, there's much, much harder options, and if this is something you're interested in, whether in a very precise kind of limb-controlling mechanical way, from an exploration standpoint, from a survival standpoint, I think there's something that it offers in all of those areas. If you want to see more, check out one of my other videos here. I have a Patreon, or you can become a channel member if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.